The wank tank.
Eavesdroppin.
Hey, Michelle.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast this week. It's called Eavesdroppin. We are talking, you as the listener are eavesdropping. So please don't write in and complain that we've told you something that's wrong.
Because, like we always say, we play fast and loose with the facts.
Fast and loose.
We do indeed.
Although I have to say, last week's episode, which has to have been one of the... I edited it quite well, so you couldn't hear all the ums and ahs and the long silences. But it was one of the least researched or Googled episodes we've ever done. Shame, because it was an interesting topic. Cloud busting, cloud seeding, ley lines, crop circles. We'll come back to it. We can always come back to it. I heard from Fran Ray, who's a listener. Shut up, Fran. It was a good one, she said. Or a good one, she said.
A good one. Oh, well, that's good, because you always get a bit worried when you do fuck all research.
Absolutely.
And you're like on a wing and a prayer. But you know what? I will also say our eavesdroppers were treated to one of the best videos of you dancing like Kate Bush.
Thank you.
With the dog running in the frame.
There was two dogs. Do you know, I have been honing my Kate Bush skills from a very young age. I learnt to do a babushka dance for my, Girl Guides. You had to get a badge, didn't you? And the only one I ever got was the hostess badge, which is the one that you get when you make some coconut ice and make a cup of tea and serve a few people. Then you have to entertain them. And I think I sang them a song on my guitar, and then I came out and did a mime to babushka. Complete with a bing, boom, boom, babushka, babushka, ba. So I know the dance very well. And since then, at every party or just get together with friends, doesn't even have to be a party, I'll don the I have got a wig, which I've lent to a friend now, but up till that point when I had my own wig, it was always just a pair of black tights, a slick of blue eyeshadow and a bright red lip, a frock, and I'd be out there entertaining whether you liked it or not.
I think there may have been a few wines along with the outfit beforehand.
Yeah, in later years, yes. But like I said, Michelle, I've been doing it since I was about 12. So there was a long time of doing it just sober. A long time.
I remember my sister and I, we loved the babushka video. And I remember begging my mum to please make me a babushka outfit for the school disco.
A metallic bra.
Yep.
And
she
pants.
said no. Yeah,
of course she did.
No.
Imagine you turning up like that.
I don't think that's appropriate.
It's really inappropriate.
Yeah, but I just loved it, and I thought, it would be so cool to wear that at the disco. But anyway, no. Jen put her foot down.
I'm glad she did. Imagine all the unwanted attention.
I loved doing the Wuthering Heights dance too.
Yeah, me too.
Honestly, all her dancing, I love it. I mean, it's
wow. That was a good one as well. And the hair.
Oh, always the hair. Do you know what? I did revisit the video for cloud busting, but it was the extended version. And do you know what? Donald
Donald Duck? Donald Duck?
Donald Sutherland. He was absolutely amazing. And do you know what? He's hot.
So hot. He's so hot. Please tell me he's still alive.
Yeah, he is. He is. Hanging on by a thread.
Can you tell me, is Terence Stamp still alive? I love him too.
I think Terence Stamp is
Did he die? Can we quickly Google that? Because I just need to know. I was watching last night a film, and I beg you all not to bother with it. It's called Tenet. It's one of those Christopher Nolan confusion films. And I loved Interstellar, which was equally confusing, but at least you could understand what the actors were saying, even if you couldn't understand what they were talking about. But last night, it was almost like amateur dramatics. And I'm talking Kenneth Branagh and other great actors in it. I said to Paddy at one point, I feel like I'm watching the A-level drama, like have written and produced their own science fiction action play. It was bizarre.
Where they used like tins of cat food instead of actual cats and like ridiculous dumb shit.
What?
Anyway, look, that was me and my stupid high school play. Anyway, just for your information, according to Wikipedia, Terence Stamp is alive.
Yes!
And he's 83 years old.
I love you, Terence. Oh, I know why I thought about it, because Michael Caine made a brief appearance in the film Tenet last night. I mean, blink and you miss him. He didn't add anything to it. No one could have.
Can we cycle back to Donald Sutherland?
Yes, back to Don.
He was such a genius in this video with Kate Bush. And I actually linked, for anyone who's interested, I linked in the show notes this piece that he had written about his time working with Kate.
Oh.
And he
Because the way they looked at each other was very loving, wasn't it?
It was. But apparently he got the script, was asked to do the video. It said, fuck off. No, not doing it. She found out where he was staying in London. He was shooting some shit movie. Went to his hotel room, knocked on the door, had the William Reich book. He'd just been reading it, took it as a sign, said, yes, I will do it. He got picked up in a car, taken out. They were both in the car together. She absolutely lights up, massive spliff. And he's like,
Did she?
Yeah, and he's like,
go, Kate.
You should be doing that. And she's like, absolutely. And so she was like fucked for the whole thing. He loved her, thought she was amazing, thinks she was just like such a talent. They had a great day. And he, honestly, like when you watch all his little nuances with his face in the cloud busting video, he's so good. Like I said, I watched the extended mix. It's like 7 minutes. And apparently back in the day, it was shown as a short, but before films in the cinema. Yeah, so that's why they made it so long. And I mean, you know, it's like kind of a dud story, but he's wonderful. She's got dodgy wig on, like that weird machine that they make, which is, like you said, is a bit tubery.
But it's not really. I mean, William Reich didn't make a big rain buster like that out of a tuba. He made a box where you could have a good old time in. An orgasmatron.
Honestly, watch it. If anyone hasn't watched it, like I said, in the show notes, you can go and link to a few of these things that I found. But speaking of not that episode, because I've had no feedback really about that episode.
Thanks, Eavesdroppers.
What I did get was some Eavesdroppin feedback from Jen.
I'd love to hear.
Well, it was about the Strange Addictions episode. And I said, oh, Mum, did you listen? And she went, oh, wasn't it dreadful? And I just thought, gosh, I haven't heard anyone say dreadful in years. Absolutely loved it.
I think I use the word dreadful occasionally.
Oh, do you?
Oh, it's dreadful. I'm sure I do.
Oh, it's dreadful. True, Jen, true. It was just dreadful. I think she didn't mean us. I think she just meant the lady eating her own dead husband.
I certainly hope that's what she meant.
True, Jen, true. True, Jen, true. Yes, and then I had Neil the scientist get in touch.
Here we go, Neil. Did he enjoy his very own jingle? Because you know what, Michelle? We are collecting some high-spec contributors to this show. We've got Neil the scientist. We've got Tamira, the modern mystic.
Don't forget, we have Hazel, the psychic real estate agent.
And Al Taggart, who is not a unicorn.
Yes.
We've got all of those amazing contributors. Keep on eavesdropping, I tell you what.
Anyway, I had some comments from Neil the scientist. He started off with, you nut bags.
Love it. I'm a bag of nuts.
A bag of nuts. The tardigrades are not my fault, he says. Human DNA is probably the last thing we want to contaminate the universe with. But those tardigrades are tough little bastards. Following the crash that dumped the tards on the moon.
Oh, don't know if you can call them that. Apologies. Apologies. That's Neil's words, not ours.
He says, following the crash that dumped the tards on the moon, the space nerds have kind of rethought a few things. For example, some nerds were recommending using bacteria to extract minerals from asteroids and planets and stuff.
But why?
But then people started thinking that maybe we shouldn't be contaminating the universe with our shit for profit. Not just yet anyway.
Okay, thanks, Neil. That's incredible.
Now, he says, sheep shearers sometimes wash their hands in their first wee of the morning to make them tough. Now I'm confused about whether the wee makes I think he means your skin, supple or not.
Soft or hard. Okay. Well, I would be confused too, Neil. I would be too. In fact, I am. Just look at my face. I'm confused.
Confused from Kent.com. He also says wee has been used for lots of things throughout history, like adding to dyes and stuff. It's mainly the ammonia, which is mostly nitrogen, that is the functional part. It sounds to me like that lady with cancer may be consuming a touch too much urine, though.
Yeah.
He says here, though, my greatest concern from this episode is why Geordie's husband would, 1, piss in the apple juice bottle.
Thank you, Neil.
Brackets, is he a long-haul truck driver on a tight schedule? End of brackets.
Yeah.
And most importantly, 2, why would he leave that bottle in the kitchen? Was he stockpiling the urine for something? How is the kitchen a reasonable place to store the urine unless he wanted someone to drink it? I'm very confused.
Well, thank you for those comments, Neil. I really hope that my husband, Paddy, is listening to this episode because those are the questions, Neil, that I asked him in a very loud voice after I had rinsed my mouth out. Michelle was there. I said, why would you do that? Why? He claims to have forgotten that doing that. But as Michelle alluded to, when I first met Paddy, he had a high bed in a squat, and there were many bottles of wee. Many. When I found out what there were, I was like, get them out of this room. Get them out. You will never do that again. It's not on. It's lazy. Just pee out the window, which he does that as well, actually.
I love a nature wee. I do. I love a nature poop. I love a nature wee. Honestly, it's so pleasant to do it outside.
And what do you do afterwards, Michelle, when you've done a nature poop? Just out of interest. What do you wipe your ass with?
Well, let's see what's around. And if I did happen to have some kind of
A dock leaf.
tissue, a tissue or something, I always make sure I bury it. But yeah, you don't just leave it like above ground.
Do you make a little hole before you do your droppings? Do you dig a little hole?
It depends. I don't walk around with a shovel. No.
So do you just think afterwards, I might need to bury that? How do you then bury your poo? With your bare hands?
You can't bury it. You just have to cover it.
Right.
You get leaves and things. Yeah,
Right. Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, in closing, Neil says, your show is actually quite dangerous for me. I was lifting heavy things in my apocalypse gym. Now,
What?
He says this because they are in lockdown right now.
Okay.
In Australia.
In Australia.
So he's called it his apocalypse gym. I guess he's got, tins of beans and God knows what else.
Out of bits and bobs.
Bits and bobs. And he says he was lifting heavy things in the apocalypse gym. Apocalypse gym.
Yeah.
When the bit about strange addictions came on, when I heard you do the Southern American accent with the toilet paper eating, I pissed myself laughing.
Literally.
And dropped the weights on my person.
Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that, Neil. But I hope when you pissed yourself, you had a nice big pint glass nearby. Thanks for the contribution, Neil. You are earning your worth for that jingle.
Neil the scientist.
Neil, he's real.
Neil the scientist.
Neil, he's a scientist. Neil. Orange peel.
He blinded us with science.
Fantastic. Thank you for writing in. We love it when people write in. Can you bear with me for a moment? Because last week in our episode, I mentioned the chalk drawings in the earth. Yes. That you see around the British Isles. They're quite famous, like Stonehenge. You've got that lovely horsey in Wiltshire and the Man of Abyss.
There is one in York. Yes.
The one in York, etc. Now, Moira, our historian, did get back to us. Also, ceramicist, planetarium on Etsy.
Beautiful folk pottery.
That's right. I will just tell you what Moira, our historian, has said, which she said few of them are very ancient, although the Uffington White Horse seems to be. Most of them were created in the late medieval to early modern period, say 1500 to 1800, usually to commemorate an event. They are just basically made by scraping off the turf to reveal the chalk, and this is regularly maintained and even painted in some cases.
Well, she says that they're not ancient, but in my world, coming from a country that's just over 200 years of founded civilization, that seems like old. That is ancient.
Thanks, Moy.
Thank Moisey.
So what are we talking about today, Michelle?
Well, you know that we both love a good old cult.
Oh, I love a cult.
We do love a cult. But when we were talking about it for this week, you said something like, okay, let's do cults, but nothing too dark.
Yeah.
So I looked for a lighthearted cult where not everybody dies at the end.
Yes. And so did I. So in actual fact, both of us ended up finding something that was more like a sect than a cult. So rather than being a cult, it's become like a religion, like Scientology. So there is some guy who has a vision at the very front of it, convincing people that his ideas are correct. Because, like you said, no one died. Not really.
Not really. Not really. But, you know, I think it's what's fascinating to me is that these people, how do you motivate these people? Because I probably will refer to mine as a cult because according to the people who've left this sect, they call it a cult.
Okay.
But it is a religious sect. And today I'm going to be talking about the Bruderhof.
What's that?
I'll tell you a bit more about it in a moment because what I kind of started off thinking was a little bit like what you were just saying. Why do these cult leaders start out being like amazing, charismatic, benevolent, giving human beings that people want to follow? And in the end, kind of most of them become power hungry control freaks. So I mean, I don't really have any answers to this, but I'm curious, like what flips in these cult leaders where they start off being like these messiah type people. And by the way, I feel like that's what Russell Brand is aiming for. You've seen him. Yeah, I do, because, you know, he was like the sexaholic and, you know, like the cheeky chappy into all his drugs, hoovering up everything. And now he's got like the grey beard.
Right.
He looks like a cult leader.
Well, he does plan to start a cult. He says, I don't know if he's joking, but he does say often about his cult that he's going to start.
But I'd be in Russell's cult. I think that'd be good fun. I would.
I have a theory only based on what you've just said and about, you know, what makes these people go from being benevolent to wanting to take over and control and then suddenly realize they can have all the sex with the 14-year-old girls and all this kind of thing. I think the same thing happens to people like, I don't know enough about him, but I'm going to say R. Kelly or someone like that. Bit of fame, normal person, talented, doing good. Then suddenly some fame comes their way and it changes them because the way that they're being treated changes. They suddenly feel like, oh, I can get someone to make me a coffee rather than making it myself. Oh, this person wants to have sex with me. Oh, I can have sex with anybody I want. Oh my God, if I say do this, they're going to do this. Oh my God, I am the boss.
Yeah, maybe.
So power goes to people's heads very quickly. And no, I don't think anyone's ever really equipped for fame or power.
I don't either.
The egos are so fragile.
Yeah, and you only have to look at all these people that can't handle fame, like all those child actors who just fuck up.
Burned out.
You know, yeah, it's just, I don't think any of us, you know, it's something that we think we want, but I think, you know, that old adage, careful what you wish for. If you don't know what the consequences of fame and money and power will do to people.
Right. So what's this Bruderhof?
Well, it's a sect. Now, because I kind of was looking at other cults where people don't die in the end, because the Bruderhof are very gentle religious sect.
What's it all about?
Well, they are Anabaptists. Now, Anabaptists. They call themselves Anabaptists. And what that basically means is they're a little bit like the Amish. Some people say they have a Protestant basis, but they say they don't. In essence, it's everything that you kind of want in like the perfect society. They live in communes. They all work, but nobody has individual money. They all look after each other. They have sort of their own communities. You know, it's very, very closed. Like I said, like the Amish, They have limited access to like modern technology, so no smartphones, no TV, no social media. Although, saying that, I did go on YouTube and there is a Bruderhof girl called Laura who has a YouTube channel telling people all about the Bruderhof. They ask her questions.
Hey guys, it's Laura. Okay, today I'm going to tell you all about Bruderhof. Yay!
That is pretty much it. She was trying to like crack a few jokes. And, you know, like no makeup. They've got head coverings because for the women in the Bruderhof, they are not allowed to wear anything even remotely provocative. So it's all long skirts.
So no Kate Bush bras, that's for sure.
No babushka bras. Absolutely not. And they are very, very mild in their approach to life. Although dudes can wear whatever they want, but they also...
Of course they fucking can.
Yeah.
Where is that different?
And they also have like a no sex before or outside of marriage rule.
Oh, that's different
And-
for a sect or a cult, isn't it? That's new.
It is new. And Bruderhof members who are single have to be celibate, 100%. Yeah, because you're not allowed to have sex in or outside of marriage. It's all about marriage because they really believe that God wants people to procreate. Family is everything. And there is some text that they relate to. I should find it, where it like if in the Bible where sex is between a man and a woman, so gays are not tolerated in the Bruderhof. You have to put everything, all your thoughts, efforts, time, whatever, into building the community and building your family. That's
right.
The bottom line.
Who's the boss? Who started it?
Yeah, well, it's actually the origins of this cult are really interesting. And like I say, they absolutely say they're not a cult, but a religious sect. But like, you know, the people who've left are all like, it's a goddamn cult. But anyway, it started in 1920 in Germany by a guy called Eberhard Arnold and his wife, Emmy. That wasn't a very good German accent,
No.
sorry.
But I liked it.
Eberhard.
Eberhard.
You think that's better? So they had 5 kids. Eberhard and Emmy had 5 kids. And they just decided they wanted to start a Christian community. So they rented some land in a place called Sanners, which was then part of the Weimar Republic.
Okay.
Did you know about Weimar Republic?
Yes,
so
I
you're
do know
shaking
about
your
it.
heads. Your heads. You have one head.
All of
you're
my
shaking
heads.
your head. Well, I didn't know about it, but it was a separate state.
Yeah.
And now they're just a part of Germany, I think.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a
but-
friend in Germany who's from the Weimar Republic.
Oh, Weimar.
Originally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weimar.
Yeah.
Sorry, I called it Weimar.
Weimaraners, that beautiful dog that looks like it's a mink colour with short hair and beautiful pale eyes, they're Weimaraners. They're from the Weimar Republic.
They didn't do well when...
No.
This group didn't do well in the Weimar.
Well, didn't Weimar Republic have a terrible time with starvation and famine and things?
I think everything. But-
Especially in that time frame, 20s, like
Yeah.
pre-war.
Well, maybe actually that's why the group grew. I mean, they grew and grew. But the thing is, they ended up having to move around Germany for a bit because when Hitler took power and Nazism was on the rise, they were, I mean, part of their one of the tenets of their community.
God, don't say tenet.
Tenet. Oh, God.
Don't say tenet.
Sorry.
When you say tenet, that opens a door, apparently, if you ask bloody Christopher Nolan. Terrible movie. Ripped off.
Well, they are a very peace-loving, pacifist community. So when Hitler took power, they moved all their draft age men and children to Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein, yes, because they were all conscientious objectors. And in the end, the pressure of Nazism was too strong on the group. So they basically picked up and moved to the Cotswolds in England.
Okay, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Cotswolds. Gateway to...
What?
I don't know what. I don't know. I'm
It's
trying to
gorgeous.
think. I know, it's beautiful.
To Middle England. Anyway.
Yes, that's
So
it.
That was in 1936, and they bought this massive 200-acre farm near the village of Ashton Keynes. Do you know where that is?
No.
No, I don't know where it is. People got wind of what they were all about and ended up, people, like English people who were conscientious objectors, ended up like fleeing to their community.
Compound.
Yeah, so they wouldn't be drafted and wouldn't be put in prison. So think of this. A German community full of English conscientious objectors did not go down well.
I can imagine.
And they basically were hounded out of the community by the Brits. Because, I mean, you think about it, the Germans were dropping bombs all over Britain. And here you've got this peace-loving society. So they didn't do well. So they picked up and moved off to Shropshire. And that's where the history sort of gets a little bit hazy. Okay. But they're still going, obviously, because, you know, you've got Laura on YouTube. But there were, well, actually, as of last year, there were 2 Bruderhof communities in Germany, 3 in the UK, 1 in Robertsbridge in East Sussex.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know where that is?
Yeah, I do. I go there all the time.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's right next to Battle.
Ah, right. Okay. There's 1 in Dover in Kent.
Okay. Yep.
And there's 1 in Peckham in London.
Wow.
I know. How do you be like a Bruderhof in the city?
I used to see, when I worked in the fashion retail area and travelled a lot as a visual, I used to see what I thought were Amish people coming in and out of Blue Water in Kent.
Okay. Well, look, maybe they were not Amish, because the Bruderhof do look weird. You know, they've got the headscarf kind of head covering things. They've got the really daggy, horrible skirts, long skirts all the way to the ground, no makeup. So maybe they were Amish just without the white gear. And anyway, there are 3 communities in Australia, 1 in Ellesmere, 1 in Inverell, and 1 in Armidale. And all of these are all in New South Wales.
They're all regional and rural, quite rural, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they like having their land. And then they have communities in Austria, Paraguay, of all places, and America. I don't know how many in America, but I would say there's loads. We were laughing before about, you know, gentle kind of sex where nobody dies. But it seems to me like they really do have like very good fundamental principles.
But what about the people who left, Michelle? Surely they've got bones to pick.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are unhappy people there. I mean, look, when I was researching, I did come across this one woman called Cecily who left the Bruderhof when she was 15. And she sort of gave this account of being shamed by the community when she broke the rules, because she was speaking to boys outside of the Bruderhof and flirting. Basically, she was sort of made to stand up during a community lunchtime meal, because they all have 1 meal a day together as a community. And she was told that she needed to apologize for her behavior, that she was the spawn of Satan, she was a parasite on the commune, that she'd grow up and be a whore on the street, that she was a vampire, she was an evil child, she was a witch. God.
This is now reminding me of a horror film that I couldn't watch recently, Midsummer.
Oh, the Swedish one.
Did you watch that?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, don't watch it. Don't watch it.
Okay.
You think it's going to be good and it's not. It's horrific.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
It's very chilling and it's very scary.
This poor woman, Cecily, she says she was psychologically traumatized after all of this. Although, in the interests of, you know, 2 sides to a story, the Bruderhof do deny ever saying anything like that to her, and they say that they don't use language like that. So, I don't know. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. But I did read a couple of accounts where, you know, people weren't treated very nicely and were shamed by the community. There was one guy who was shamed for being gay and he actually left, and people who were shamed for flirting and whatever. And actually there's a really great article in the New York Times from the 90s actually, all about sort of the shitty things that happen behind the scenes at the Bruderhof. Like what we were talking about before, there are some communities where there are, you know, controlling people running the community. where there are severe punishments, psychological abuse. But I mean, I think some sexual abuse too. But just, these are the bog standard, normal things that happen when you're in a cult, right?
Yeah.
So,
Situation normal.
Really, yeah. But if you think about the Catholic Church and all those Catholic priests doing horrible things to small boys, it's happening everywhere. Shitty stuff goes on. But I would say that in general, the Bruderhof do have a good baseline for what they're trying to achieve. And they really are all about working together. And they have a factory and they make wooden furniture.
Like the Shakers.
Yes. And it's for schools. And they make fucking big dollar all over the world. People are like, their furniture is in really high demand. They are rich. They are a really rich sect. And people kind of work, like the women obviously like have different roles. They work to keep the family going, and the men generally do like all the stuff to do with the factories. But it's a modern website. You can buy this great, well-crafted, well-made wooden furniture, and it's in schools everywhere. So they have kind of corporate clients. So they are making big money, and then everybody gets looked after. So
fair enough. What are they doing with all the money? I suppose they're putting it back into their industry and just keeping it rolling.
Yeah, they don't have flashy cars and all that kind of stuff, but everybody is well housed, well fed, well looked after. I mean, they run their own schools, so it's all very enclosed. They have their own medical teams and all that kind of stuff. So they built their own infrastructure.
Well, they sound fun.
They don't really drink. Oh, no. Sorry. They do drink.
Do they?
Yes. This is what I read something. The BBC a few years ago apparently did a documentary. I couldn't find it. Otherwise, I would have watched it. But apparently, they love their booze. They're always getting smashed. So actually, maybe they do.
They probably have their own stills or something.
Yeah, maybe.
They'll make their own booze.
The only weird thing is obviously that they are religious, and they're like this Anabaptism. What that really means is they don't believe that you should baptize children because children can't choose. They think that as an adult, you should get baptized. So these adult baptisms are like, every week or something, because you are continuously baptizing yourself and washing yourself of sin and renewing your faith. So that's sort of where they are. But
amazing.
Yeah, but
and no one died.
Well, that's it. Like, we have Jonestown Massacre. We have the Jonestown Massacre, where Jim Jones gave all his People's Temple people poison Kool-Aid. They all died.
Yeah, it wasn't actually Kool-Aid apparently, but yes,
no,
exactly.
It was some aid. It was
and they
a
didn't
type
take
of
it.
Aid.
They didn't take it willingly, most of them. It's horrific, that story. But we won't go into the darkness today. We don't want to talk about David Berg and his children of God and all the awful abuse. And
no, but it's more about just, so you've got Jonestown Massacre, where they all died at the end. You've got Waco, where actually
Branch Davidian sect.
Branch Davidians. Yep. That wasn't even David Koresh's fault that they all died. The US government swooped in and hit them with poisonous gas and then set the whole compound on fire. So they all died in the end, but that wasn't his fault. And of course, then you've got things like Heaven's Gate, where
which I was going to do today, actually.
Oh, it's so interesting.
There's a great podcast with Glyn Washington. He's amazing. He does some great podcasts, actually. But he has a family history of being in sects and things like that. So his expose or documentary style podcast, it's about 10 episodes, called Heaven's Gate, is well worth a listen.
Oh wow. Because
for anyone who doesn't know anything about Bonnie and Doe and Ray, it's very interesting.
I don't know that much about it, more than he told the main dude, what was his name, Thomas Applethwaite or something, the leader. He told all his followers that the Earth was going to get recycled, and that there was a spaceship behind the Hale-Bopp comet. And then he gave them all a really delicious cocktail of vodka, pineapple juice, and cyanide. And then they all died.
Ultimately, in a nutshell, that is the story. But do go and listen to the podcast. It's so good.
But what I find if we relate it back to the Bruderhof, you know, they are just living on farms, doing their thing, looking after their people. Yes, okay, you're not allowed to flirt. They have got rules. If you break the rules, maybe you don't get treated so well. But,
Yeah, right.
I mean, we do that too. We have rules in our society, and if you don't stick by them, you get thrown in jail, you know, whatever. Like every society has rules. So on the whole, I mean, it's not something I would want to join, but
It's fairly innocuous. Yeah.
it gets a mild thumbs up, I guess.
Okay.
There you go.
That's a mild thumbs up from Michelle on the, what they called again? Bruderhof.
Bruderhof.
Bruderhof sect.
Bruderhof.
Don't want no vanilla slice. Don't want no ice. Vote.
Don't want no chalky wagon wheels. We want Neenish
Tarts for Smoko. You right there? Give us a light.
The two-tone taste of fabulousness. Two birds yakking. Well, I too have a sect to talk about today, Michelle, because after looking at Heaven's Gate and thinking, oh, it's just too big and other people have done it much better, like Lynn Washington, I've done one which is quite similar to Scientology in a way because it's based on science fiction.
Wow.
Have you heard of the International Raelian movement?
No, not even a little bit.
Okay, well, their founder is a French sports car journalist called Claude Vorilhon, who claimed to have met an alien who named him Raël in 1974.
Wow.
Yeah, so he bumped into this alien and he told him that the human race was created by aliens. And these aliens were like an androgynous race who've evolved to banish things like greed, hate, racism, sexism, and the male and females are indistinguishable.
Okay.
So the followers of this sect, and he looks a little bit like a cross between Russell Brand and Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, who has his own little sect, now called Osho. You know, the Bhagwan
Yeah.
Sri, you know, do you remember with Ma Sheila saying, Duff Diddy? So followers wear a pendant that is the swastika with a Jewish star around it, and they have a ritual where you send your DNA to another planet, and they want to rebuild African women's clitorises in a specially built pleasure hospital. These are all the wonderful things that they do. They're a very harmless sect. But listen, Claude Vorilhon had minor success as a young man as a pop star in France. His name wasn't that, it was something different. But it all came to an end when his manager committed suicide in the 70s. And then because he was a keen racing car fan, he got into sports journalism, married his wife who was a nurse, and then started his own magazine called Autopop.
Okay. He's a smart guy.
He's a smart guy. And then he met the alien in 73. And everything changed. So he wrote loads of books and he does lots of conferences. And now he claims in one of his many books that on the 13th of December, 1973, in a secluded volcanic crater in France, he saw a spaceship descend and an alien came out who spoke to him in French and told him that the only reason that the alien was there was because he was waiting to meet up with Claude Vorilhon and only him, because he needed to give him a message. And it was Claude's mission to inform his fellow Earthlings. So he got a new name, which is great because I'm having difficulty pronouncing Vorilhon. He's now named Raël by the being, right?
Raël.
Raël, which means something I can't remember what. So this alien said that scientists from another planet about, I think it's 25,000 years ago, they had scientific advances and they created all life through DNA manipulation.
Okay.
These extraterrestrials are called Elohim, meaning those who come from the sky. So this extraterrestrial went on to say there had been 40 prophets previously with the same message in Earth's history, and they'd all been sent. But due to the primitive language and cultures in humans at the time of these prophets' arrivals, the messages were misunderstood and distorted.
Geordie, what are the messages? I'm sitting here thinking, what are the messages?
The message, well, he's given the message now. It's out there. The reason for the message was so that we would know about our origins. So these aliens were getting in touch with people like Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad. All of those people in the past were given the same message. But as a people, Earthlings, misconstrued it. That's what the alien guy was telling Raël. So the reason was so that we would know about our origins and we could prepare for the aliens' return by building a massive embassy on neutral territory. So Raël, as he's now known, says that certain mysteries were explained to him based on new interpretations on sacred texts like the Bible and other, religious texts. They were all explained to him. And he's also been taken to another planet where he met Buddha, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, amongst others.
Wow.
So he's got all the books that you can read. One's called Extraterrestrials Took Me to Their Planet.
Oh my God. I love this guy. This guy is absolutely whack.
Yeah, so he started his movement called the International Raelian Movement. Now, they're very harmless nutbags, they're known as. They are about sexual liberation, and Raël was actually married 4 times, once to the 16-year-old daughter of other cult members.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, here we go.
But on the whole,
He's French though too. Come on.
Exactly. And it was the 70s, I suppose. They were regarded as camp, goofy, harmless nut jobs. And in 1991, a journalist signed up to one of their week-long sensual meditation camps, which is like a nudist camp with lots of meditation. So this journalist snuck into the tents and recorded couples having sex, which was then played on the radio. So then the sect had a really bad reputation as orgiastic brainwashers.
No.
And there was lots of TV shows. I know. But anyway, Raël believes that soon humans will not need to work or have jobs because of technological advancement that's coming, and because we are not made to work, because we're all that hard work is supposed to be done by machines. We are supposed to just lay back and create and think and meditate.
Love that. That sounds like a good life. That sounds like retirement. Really.
So he has another book called Yes to Human Cloning, which came out in 2001. So he loves the idea of human genetic engineering in order to avoid genetically inherited diseases and to reduce the economic burden on society through health and social care expenses.
Okay.
He also believes in nanotechnology, which a lot of other cults believe in. It does exist, but we're still in the early stages. But he believes that nanotechnology will make it possible to have a power plant in each house. Oh. So you can, generate your own electricity. Furnishings will be made of self-cleaning fur that moves on its own. And we'll have biological robots. So these are things, I don't know about the furry sofa.
Yeah.
We might burn our way to achieving some of those things.
I like his directives here. These are good.
He also says nanotechnology can help animate plant life. And he says that when he met these aliens, he was presented with genetically modified flowers that danced about and changed colour to music.
That's what happens when you drop acid.
Well, that could have been the case. Again, he was a pop star. Yeah. So Raël says genetically modified food is the only way to stop world famine, and that in the future meat and salads will someday be grown in a machine via molecular construction. Hello, corn.
It's already happening. We already talked about synthetic meat in a previous episode.
We did.
Dude's on it. Dude's ahead of his time.
There's a lady called Maurice Péloquin who spent 10 years researching Claude Vorilhon and Raëlism. She discovered evidence that Raël took ideas from other UFO writers from the 1950s through to the 70s. So there's quite a bit of plagiarism at play here. Her book is called Raël, Thief of Souls, Biography of a Liar.
Oh my God. Do you know what? She sounds like a woman scorned. Because what I was going to say is, look, maybe he didn't steal ideas. Maybe these other people, have been visited by the aliens.
Well, they do say that it's people like George Adamski and Jean Sendy who have been directly quoted almost from their books. They were science fiction writers and, ancient astronauts they would write about.
Okay.
So, for example, Jean Sendy was a French writer and translator who died in the 70s, and his 1968 book is called The Moon, the Key to the Bible. And he claims the word Elohim, which is what Raël says the aliens are called, was mentioned in the Old Testament, and it usually translates as God, but he realized that it's actually the plural, gods. So he claimed that the gods were actually aliens, and the book of Genesis was in fact a factual historical document about ancient astronauts colonizing Earth who became angels in human memory.
Wow. Okay.
And then he's got a 1969 book called Those Gods Who Made Heaven and Earth. Sendy said that aliens arrived 23,500 years ago. So if you remember, Raël said it was 25,000 years ago that they colonized the Earth with all this DNA manipulation. So Sendy had said in his book back in 69, so it's quite close to the time when Raël met the alien in 1973.
Yeah, just a few years later.
Yeah. So he says that that's when humanity kicked off thanks to the aliens. Now, I always think back to movies that I've seen. And of course, I'm a science fiction fan. So I was thinking of Prometheus, which is the prequel to Alien. Don't, because it's hard. It's hardcore. Don't take your kids to see it, please, Michelle's sister, Steph. When she's heard other recommendations, she said, I'll sit down with the kids and watch that. No, don't do that. Don't watch Midsummer and don't watch Prometheus. It's Ridley Scott's prequel to Alien, and it was kind of like the origin story of the alien monster that's in all his films, right? It was about an alien race called the Engineers who created life on Earth and other planets only to destroy it later.
Oh.
So in a Ridley Scott interview, he said that the reason the engineers wanted to destroy Earth, specifically mankind, was because Jesus Christ was an engineer.
Oh.
Very similar to the Raelian backstory. The engineers made man, and man went bad, so they sent an engineer to try and fix the problem. We crucified the engineer, and apparently they didn't like this.
Okay.
So they came back and, that was Ridley's version of his movie, because I was left with loads of questions about that movie despite all the horror and everything that you had to endure. Anyway, back to Raël. In 1992, there was an attempt on Raël's life. There was an ex-member called Jean Paragat who had a criminal record for car theft and drug dealing, and he believed that Raël was keeping his wife and children captive and trying to break up his family by forcing them into orgies and child sacrifice. So he got up on a TV program and made all these claims, and apparently he had or was about to attempt to shoot him, but it didn't happen on air.
Okay, fuck.
He survived, clearly.
Yep.
Now, on to more darker fare.
Oh,
I mean, so far, no one has died. No one has died, Michelle. We did want a lighthearted sect or cult.
We did.
And we did find that.
Well, you found it. The Bruderhof seemed completely boring compared to the old Raelians.
In 1997, a science company called Clonaid was founded in the Bahamas by Claude Raelian, a.k.a. Raël. And in 2002... a woman called Brigitte Boisselier, who's a chemist and CEO of Clonaid, claimed that they did an experiment that cloned a 31-year-old woman, and a baby was born named Eve by the scientists. She was born in an undisclosed location outside the United States. So the cloned woman, this 31-year-old woman, had donated DNA and then had the embryo implanted and gestated her clone. She carried her own
self.
She basically gave birth to herself, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Isn't that weird?
But, I mean, not impossible. Like, it's
no.
weird, but...
Well, exactly.
I mean, it's possible to do that, but I'd never even thought about carrying your own self.
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
I know.
Okay. Weird.
Bizarre. So there's an ethicist called Jonathan Moreno who said... we know from farm animals that they've had problem with their neurological systems. This is when they've done cloning before. They've had tumours. They've had problems of premature aging. So we don't really know what the health consequences are going to be for this child.
If it exists.
Well, exactly. If it exists. Because Boisselier was unable to show DNA evidence with a genetic match between the mother and daughter, which leaves her claim scientifically unsupported.
Yep.
DNA tests had been planned but were postponed after a Florida lawyer named Bernard Siegel asked a state court to appoint a legal guardian for Eve for protection, claiming that the child may have birth defects and was being exploited. Oh. But Boisselier said the tests on Eve were postponed because the baby's parents wanted to keep the identity secret. For a year after, that was the only information I could find, the baby hadn't been confirmed to be.
So the baby does exist.
Well, they're not sure. A year later, there was no evidence. There is gossip that on things like Reddit and that the baby is in Israel, but there has been no proof.
No, it just sounds like PR to me.
It could be.
Yeah.
And Raël does love the cloning because he says he insists he saw his own body being recreated in a vat in his book called They Took Me to Another Planet. No, They Took Me to Their Planet. Yes. And in a speech in Montreal in 2000, he promised immortality via cloning to everyone in the room aged 54 or under. Now, I don't quite understand that because immortality, so she's given birth to her baby, but they don't share thoughts.
No.
They don't share a soul, if there's such a thing as a soul. Do you know what I mean? But that essence that makes you, Michelle, you, and me, Geordie, if I was to give birth to you and you and me, you would still have your own thoughts, and surely you wouldn't have the same memories, you wouldn't have the same experiences, so it wouldn't be the same person.
No, it wouldn't
So I don't
be.
get
So
that.
I think this idea of immortality is a bit wrong if they're thinking cloning is the path to immortality. Because you're right.
Yeah,
immortality is you as you are with your thoughts, your body, your whatever, living forever. So
Exactly.
that doesn't add up.
No. Anyway, the Raelists believe that Judgment Day is coming when the Elohim, who record every human memory and DNA on an advanced supercomputer, will return to Earth and resurrect those who have already died using cloning. So that's how we are going to live on in that little not completely thought out science fiction story.
What happens
Which is
if you get
basically what it is.
cremated?
Well,
What happens if your
then?
body is just all dust and worms?
I don't know. Well, that's what your body will be.
I
No, but
know.
they've got your DNA. No, they've got your DNA,
Oh,
and they've got all your memories on a supercomputer, and they just grab a chip with your memories on it, and they grab a bit of your DNA. They cook you up in a vat, and they pop your memories back in. Voila! There you are. What do you think of that?
Could they make me taller? Can they do some adjustments? Do you know what? I think it's absolutely mad.
If you've been augmented, you would come back as the original version, wouldn't you?
Oh, so you wouldn't have the new
Pamela
boobs.
Anderson would be a
Yeah.
different. Yeah, she'd have to do all that work again.
Do you know what? I remember seeing this show, and I can't remember what it was, but it was one of those terrible plastic surgery gone wrong shows. And it was this woman who had butt implants because, they're all the rage.
Why?
But
why get those?
I
I've
don't
got
know.
a huge ass. It's not fun.
Do you know what? It's
not cool.
It's not cool, but we grew up when having an ass was no.
It was
Nobody.
out.
It was
So out.
completely out. Nobody wanted an ass.
I had a cardigan tied around my waist for a good 10 years to try and my mother before me also told me the very same thing. She said she was walking down the street in Sydney back in the days in Newtown, back in the days when the old men would be like the blokes, with their singlets and their vests and their flip-flops, standing at the front with their beers. She was pregnant with one of me or my siblings, and as she walked past, they said, "Oh, look at her! She's having her baby on. She's got her baby on back to front."
No! Oh, God, that's so mean.
No.
Oh. Well, I always used to have a jumper tied around my waist as well, which came in very handy one day when I had a period accident. But anyway, and I was on a date. I was at the movies with a boy I was trying to impress.
no.
Oh, God, it was terrible. I had these Boy George style.
White jeans.
Well, they were white trousers with numbers on them. And yeah, with braces, the braces that you put in. They were terrible. And I had a white crop top. And thank God I had a jumper because I just was like, something's gone wrong here. And it was just the big period leak. Anyway.
Poor Michelle.
Back to this poor woman with the butt implants. She had she had a massive ass anyway, but she had these butt implants to make it more like a bubble butt, like it was
Lifted.
rounded. But they kept flipping.
What?
They kept flipping inside her ass, and you saw this
Like a padded bra insert when it gets all twisted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you would see, because it was like these this video footage of her 5-year-old kid having to flip her ass back. So she
my
trained
God.
her children
Above and
to
beyond.
flip her ass. So if she came back, she would
Jeez.
have no issues, no bum.
She wouldn't have an
insert
op. She'd
issues.
probably think twice about getting that op done again, actually.
Yeah, I think we all would. But anyway, do you know what, Geordie? That was so much more interesting than the Bruderhof. Amazing. Because mine are actually just like normal people trying to have a simple, peaceful life.
Yeah.
Yours is about nutters, and we always love a nutter. I love crazy cults, crazy sects.
And, you know, to be continued, I reckon, with the Raelians. I'd love to know. There's still more going on, but you just don't hear about them very often, probably because they're not English speakers. Like, essentially, they are French and French colonies, and they usually kind of set up base in Francophile countries.
Okay. But what do you think it is we were talking about Heaven's Gate, you talked about Scientology. What is it about aliens and these sects, these cultish sects? Like, why is there all of these things about spaceships landing, and how has it become such a popular idea?
Well, it's because UFOs and UAPs, they're popular, aren't they? And then it gets you thinking, I suppose.
You can think, oh, maybe there's something else out there. I mean, we've talked about this before. It's unlikely that we're the only ones in the whole universe.
Well, exactly. Even if it's just a bit of bacteria somewhere else. I mean, that's still a life form, isn't it?
But yeah, I think we should have a look into Scientology, because I don't know enough about it, but it's very fascinating.
You've got to be very careful because they're all powerful.
Yeah, I know.
They may
could
shut us
down.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I did actually go to the Scientology Center in LA.
Yeah.
Because we were doing organizing this thing on the grounds. It's like for one of the magazine shoots. And it's beautiful. There's a lot of money in that sect. Anyway, moving right along. Thank you so much. I really loved that. I loved hearing about that.
Thanks. Well, you know what? I'd just like to say thank you for your story, Michelle. Every story's a winner. Somebody might find that really interesting and want to go out there and try and be a Bruderhof. Who knows? Or Gruderhof. I can't remember.
You never know. You never know.
But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this little eavesdropping session.
Indeed.
And from here on in, you must continue to
keep on
eavesdropping.
Eavesdropping.